So praise you, Abba Father. Let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to come before your throne of grace right now, and I just want to thank you for this day. I thank you for everything that you are doing in our lives in this hour that we are in. What an exciting time to live in. Father, I just stand in awe because I think to myself, for those who have not taken the time in the last few years to be able to crucify their flesh, you are so merciful that you are helping us in this time to come to a place of starting to help us to crucify our flesh. I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, because no matter what the enemy does, and this is what we're going to understand of the book of Esther, no matter what the enemy has planned for your children, Abba, I praise and I thank you that you still have a better plan. There is a plan that we cannot always see. There is a window that we cannot see. There is a promise that we cannot see that lays in the horizon that right now we might not even be able to see. We don't even understand how these things are going to work out. We don't really understand how these things are going to play out. But we know that you alone are the one that is in control. Abba, I praise and I thank you that the book of Esther is one of those books that doesn't even mention your name once. Not once. If we look through the whole of the book, if we read the whole of the book of Esther, not once are you mentioned in that book. But oh my goodness, what lessons there are to learn and how we see your hand behind the scenes the whole time. And that is why this book is going to be so relevant to us in the time that we're in. Because we are going to have to be reminded that even though we might not see, even though we might not even feel your presence, but we are going to know that you are there, that you are carrying us, that you are guiding us, that you are protecting us, that you are the one that has gone before us, and that you are the one that is planning everything out the way it needs to be. And so, Abba Father, teach us, Father, to be a people that will first and foremost humble ourselves and pray and seek your face and turn from our wicked ways. Then will you hear from heaven, and then will you come and heal our land. Let us understand the pattern. The pattern is first and foremost to pray. The pattern is not first and foremost to make our own plan. The pattern is first and foremost to pray and to seek your face and to find out what are you doing. And these are the lessons that you are teaching us, especially me, Abba. You are teaching me this lesson in such a powerful way, because even in the little things that I want to complain about, you are saying, my child, what are you doing? You need to yield in this area. You are still rebellious in this area. And Father, today we will understand the character of Vashti and the character of Esther, and who do we want to be. And so I praise and I thank you, Abba, my Father, for this time, for this season that we're in, where if we see the new moon tonight, it will be exactly tonight that we enter into the 1st of Tevet, into the 10th month. If it is not tonight, it will definitely be by tomorrow night that we will enter into the first day of the month of Tevet. And so I thank you, Abba Father, that what a significant time. What a significant time that we can read our Bibles and that we can see a timeline unfolding, that we can see your purposes and plans unfolding in the season and in the time that we find ourselves in. What an exciting time we're living in, Father. In this time of this feast of Maccabees, of Chanukah, where we are aware of your presence, in where you wanted a people that was going to be able to be a temple that was to carry your presence, Abba. And now we are a people that need to come like Esther into a palace, allowing you to be able to come and strip, allowing you to be able to come and cleanse, allowing you to be able to do a work, because you want to hand out crowns. That is the vision that you showed me. A people that are going to receive crowns. A people that have been stripped of their filthy clothes, and they're standing before you in beautiful white clothes. And they are receiving a coal of fire that is being put upon their lips, for them to be able to go forth and speak that which you want them to speak. And so I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, because the season and the time that we are in now is like no other time that we've ever had before. Not in our generation. This is a generation that's never been like any other generation. There's never been a plan like there is now to totally annihilate mankind. There's always been a plan to annihilate a people group. But this is a plan to annihilate mankind. This is a plan where they're actually wanting to destroy the whole of mankind and only leave a remnant for them to control. And the remnant that they're going to control is the remnant that will take the vaccine. They know that not all are going to take it. They know that even with the vaccine, many are going to die. And so that is why we are in a time like there's never been before. We are in a time where we are preparing, like John the Baptist, like John the Immerser was a voice in the wilderness, preparing the way for the coming king. And so shall we be a voice in the wilderness, preparing the way for the coming king. Because this is the time where Yochanan knew Yeshua was coming. There was one that was going to come, whose sandals he wasn't even worthy to be able to tie. And just like that, there is a time now coming where once again there's going to be a people group that are going to raise up, like John the Immerser, who's going to be a voice in the wilderness, preparing the way for the coming king. Because there is no time such as this time. But Father, when I think of that time, John himself had to die because he spoke truth to King Herod. He spoke truth. And because he spoke truth, he died. He was beheaded because he spoke truth. And so, Father, we know that the truth now is going to have to be spoken. And there are many that are not going to like the truth that's going to have to be spoken. But I thank you, Father, because I know that it's only truth that can set people free. And now is the hour and now is the time that we need to come back to what this word says from Genesis to Revelation. Now is the time. Now is the time when we need to be able to come back to the truth of this word for us to understand that this is the only foundation that we need, is what is written in this word. And everything else is not going to stand. Because at the end of the day, when everything is going to be shaken, and you said, I will once again shake the heavens and the earth. And when everything is going to be shaken, the only thing that's going to stand is your word that is standing, living within us. Because you are the word that lives within us. Your word that is living within us. And that is all that's going to stand. And at the end of the day, when we know what we stand for, it's going to limit what we're going to fall for. We are not going to bow for anything. We are not going to bow to the enemy, not in any way. And so I praise and I thank you, Father, for this word that you are going to give us this day, that we are going to be able to understand this plan that the enemy has been trying to plan all this time. Once again, history repeating itself of a trap being set out. Even so, that even now there are going to be guillotines to be able to behead people. But I praise and I thank you, Abba Father, because in the midst of it all, you too have a plan. And so I praise and I thank you, Father, for your faithful remnant. You are sealing them off in this hour. And they will raise up to do mighty and great exploits. And so I praise and I thank you for this time. May you speak to my mind and speak through my lips the very oracles that's going to come from your heart. In Yeshua's name I pray this. Amen. Amen. Praise Abba Father. So we are going to look at this book of Esther, so everybody can turn to Esther in your Bible. For those who have the scriptures, it's 810. Wow, prophetic number, 8 and a 10. Okay. and we are going to start reading. So today we're going to read, and then as we read, I will discuss, because Esther is a book that needs to be read, because it's, we're not going to read everything, but we're going to read a lot of sections so that we may understand. And as we read through it, we're going to understand it unfolding before our very eyes. So we start with Esther from verse 5, and it says, "And when those days were completed, the sovereign made a feast and lasting 7 days." So this is basically, like I said to you, this is a time, let's give you the history of Esther. Esther is a time of when they are in the time, once again, when they've gone into Babylon. This is when Israel has been captured. And this is the time when they're going to go into Babylon for a time of 70 years. And Esther and Daniel were very much almost like at the same time, where Esther and Daniel are playing out in this time. That's why in our Bibles it's been put the way it should be. You get first Esther, then you get Ezra, then you get Nehemiah, and so you get the books that are in order. So Esther comes even before you're going to get Ezra and Nehemiah. So Esther's at a time of when they are in Babylon. She's in a place called Shushan, and this is a place of where the Jews are now there. They are in captivity, but they are living still in, as long as they're conforming to they are in Babylon, the same as we are not in the land of Israel, but we are still being able to live and still be able to keep our ways, even though we are not in Israel right now. And this is how it was. Esther was Hadassah, living with her uncle, and she was in a time of when it was in the time of Babylon. And there was a king, and his name was Ashur-Werosh. Now this, in so many Bibles, it's King Xerxes. There's so many different ways that these Bibles write this, and I am just trying to say it the best way that I know in our Bible, which is already complicated as it is. But he was going to have a feast. So I want you to see this verse 5, because it says, "And when those days were completed, the sovereign made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in the citadel of Shushan, from great to small, in the country yard of the garden of the sovereign place." Now, you need to understand at what time this affair was going to be. So, if this is taking place in this time, there was a feast that was going to take place. And what was the feast? They would have been feasting, also celebrating Saturnalia and celebrating to the pagan gods, all these festivities that they have. Like this time is a time of where there's going to be a lot of festivities going on. And these festivities are festivities of what we do not celebrate, Christmas. So you must understand, these pagan feasts have been going on for a long time, because their origins come from where? Their origins come from pagan practices. And this is why you need to see, there's feasts of the pagan practices, and then there's Father's feasts. So the Father also has feasts for 7 days. And yeah, you see, there's pagan feasts for 7 days. So the king was having this feast for 7 days. And so, in verse 8 we see, and it says, "And drinking was according to the law. No one was compelled, for so the sovereign had ordered all the officers of his house, and they should do according to each one's pleasure." So, there was drinking, they were enjoying, there was partying, there were celebrations, and you see, this is very much almost part of what they don't really, yet I'm surprised, in our nation they are still allowing the people to drink, they're still allowing them to be able to party, but in some of the other nations, they are going into hard lockdown, where even in Portugal, my cousin said, she's not able to go and celebrate Christmas because my family still do. They're not even religious, but obviously they keep Christmas. She can't even see her family now at Christmas, not even her daughter, because they're not even allowed to travel from one district to another. So she is going to have to celebrate it alone. So, yeah, you see these festivities going on. But I want you to look at verse 9, because we are going to look, before we're going to get to Esther, we first need to cover the first queen, which is Vashti. So there was a sovereigness, Vashti, also made a feast for the woman in the royal palace, which the sovereign, can anybody say how it's used? Ahasuerus owned. On the 7th day, when the heart of the sovereign was glad with wine, he ordered Mehuman, Biztha, Harbonah, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs who were in attendance in the presence of sovereign Ahasuerus. Oh, Father, have mercy. To bring the sovereigness Vashti before the sovereign with her royal crown, in order to show her loveliness to the people and the officials, for she was lovely to look upon. Now, the thing that already bothered me is, why was she not celebrating with all of them? Why was she not there? Why was she having her own party? Why was she not celebrating with the rest of the people? Why was she only celebrating alone? You see. So, this already bothered me when I looked at this, and I said, now why was Vashti having her own feast? If this was a feast that was taking place, would it have been a feast only for men? Then I thought to myself, never in the pagan practices, when feasts took place, there was a lot of harlotry that was taking place. And when they sacrificed to their gods, harlotry was taking place at the same time. But instead, Vashti's sitting in her chambers, and she's going to have her own feast. She's not going to join the king's feast. She's having her own feast. So that made me see that Vashti is the kind of character that, instead of her submitting, when there is leadership, you will find that there will be leadership, and in a leadership, you will find that there will be people that will raise up in their own and try to do their own thing. You understand? And instead of submitting where leadership is, instead of them being focused on what is being done, they want to birth their own thing. And that is where I need you to understand Vashti is going to symbolize a Jezebel spirit. Because a Jezebel spirit is a rebellious spirit. It is a spirit that doesn't want to submit. It is a spirit that where there's leadership, instead of you coming into a place of where you submit under the leadership that is there, even if it means that you don't even 100% agree. That's why I've learned, if I'm not going to agree with leadership, it's better for me to leave than to stay and bring problems. The best thing to do, when I was in a teaching, I remember I used to be with, and I respected this woman highly. I mean, today she is already 90 years old. And I absolutely loved this woman. And she was bringing teaching. But in this teaching, I was not agreeing with the things that she was speaking, because she was bringing Torah, but she was bringing a lot of things that is bringing a bit of the mindset of the church into, and she's trying to adapt things into that. And when I started coming up against this in saying to her, but where do you get this from? Then she started to lord herself over me and say, my girlie. And I thought, okay, now I'm being put in my place, I understand. And then I sat there and I had to make a decision to say, I'm either going to stay there and receive what is being given to me, or I'm either going to leave than having to bring destruction. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to bring destruction. So if I don't agree with what's going on, eventually the best thing I do, if I cannot submit under the leadership, because I find that there's something wrong, I don't want to bring further division. I rather leave. And that's just the way it is. And Father has taught me to be able to do that. And today we need to understand that we need to see the spirit that is going to bring. This is why it is a spirit that brings division amongst the people. And it's because people want to do their thing that caters to the flesh. Why does division happen in churches? Because I know better. I don't want to do this, even though it might say it in the Word. But they don't want to confirm to what the Word says. They want it their way. And that is why it makes it easier. But it's like I turn around and I say to people, when people will say to me, first of all, I didn't ask for no gathering. I didn't ask for no people. I didn't ask for no following. I'm on my way to Israel, and that's where I was. I land up in Vanabal. I didn't ask to be here. I landed up here. I'm coming to relax. That's what I thought I'm going to do. I'm in the nice plot place. I can relax. I just walk in here, and already a ladies' meeting is starting. Already people are coming on Shabbat, and I'm thinking, I didn't raise up to this occasion. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even put up my hand and say, here I am, I'm going to do this. It was just put on my lap. I remember the one Shabbat, I was in tears. I was sitting in my house and I sat there and I said, I just want a Shabbat where I can just sit and do nothing right now. I don't feel like going to sit and going to speak to people right now. But you see, I didn't call myself. He called me. He raised me up. And he said, there you go. And he will bring the people. I don't need to worry if people come and people leave, if people are here or they are not. I will preach to one person. I will preach to the cats if I have to. My Fluff used to get many sermons in my house. Fluff was very anointed. She used to get plenty sermons. When nobody else was listening to the sermons, my cat on my bed would listen to all the sermons that I would preach. So I don't need an audience to preach to people. I was quite happy in Israel with me and my recorder. And that was who I was going to preach to. And wherever I would, when the Father said, record it, I would send it out. And even if I wouldn't send it out, when the time was when it took a lot. It took a woman coming to my door and knocking on my door. Brenda had to come to my door, knock on my door and say to me, right, you were responsible for taking me out of church. Now you are going to teach me. I said, excuse me? She said, I am no longer in church because of you. She said, every Tuesday, I used to go to Bible school for the last 8 years. Now I've got no Bible school. So now that I've got no Bible school, I'm coming to you. You need to teach me. I said, excuse me? I'm not going to, what do you want me to teach? Oh, Natalia, you got a lot to teach. I said, no, I don't. No, yes, you do. So she came the first Tuesday. She said, I'm coming to you now. I sat with one. That's all I was prepared to do, to sit with one. I didn't all of a sudden decide I'm going to raise up and decide, let me go and start a church now, because that's what I want to do. No, I started with one. And I was faithful. And this is what we're going to see. When we're faithful with little things, much more will be given to us. But we need to start at the bottom. We need to start and walk with the Father as He leads us. And this is, you don't even raise up to the occasion. In all the times that He's done this, I never even agreed to it. He just did it. The same as I got off the phone with a friend. I was on the phone for 4 hours with my one friend. I got off the phone and the next minute Elsie's created a YouTube channel. I said, excuse me? I didn't even ask you to do that. How could you have done that? Everything. And then I get a prophet that phones me and says, Father's starting a new thing in your life. Exactly as it's just been done. To tell me, just in case I was going to tell Elsie, take that thing off now. A prophet phones me at that very hour to tell me, Father is starting a new chapter in your life. And everything of what's just happening is prophesying it over my life. And I sit there and I say to myself, Abba, how do you work these things out? And this is for you to understand. That's the difference between an Esther to a Vashti. A Vashti wants to exalt herself. A Vashti wants to be seen. A Vashti is about controlling. A Vashti wants to be about herself. A Vashti is rebellious. A Vashti raises herself up when the Father didn't raise her up. And Esther will sit and wait for the Father to raise her up at His appointed time. And this is where we need to see the difference between an Esther and a Vashti. And Esther's been hidden. She's been hidden. Nobody really knew about Esther. She's been sitting. She's part of the Jewish people. She's part of this Hebrew people sitting in Shushan. Who knows about her? Nobody. Nobody knew her. She was a Dasa. She wasn't even Esther. She had another name. Do you understand? She didn't even have the name Esther. Her name was Adasa. Nobody knew her. And so, here comes this Vashti that we look at, which is a totally different spirit. And this is what we need to look at. Because the ones that the Father's going to raise up now, these Esthers that he's going to raise up now, they're the no name, no fame kind of people that are going to raise up. They're the nobodies. They're the ones that didn't even ask to be chosen, and yet they were chosen. So many are called, few are chosen, and you know why? Because many are called, few choose. So listen carefully. It's not the fact that necessarily you have been chosen. You are going to choose to want to follow Abba in obedience. And the more you choose to follow him, the more he's going to raise you up. The more you empty yourself of yourself, the more he can pour himself within you. So now we continue to look at this, and we're going to see in verses 11 it says, and bring the sovereign Vashti before the sovereign with her royal crown, in order to show her loveliness to the people and the officials, for she was lovely to look upon. But the sovereigness Vashti refused to come at the sovereign's command, brought by the eunuchs, and the sovereign was very wroth, and his rage burnt within him. So you see, now she gets summoned by the king. How many times does the king summon us? How many times does the king ask us for something in our lives? Imagine there's something in your life that the king is saying, lay this down. And you say, no, I don't want to. How many times does the king say, do this, and you say, no, I don't want to do it. I want to hold on to it. If you do that, there's a Vashti spirit within you. There is a rebellious spirit within you. And how do you expect to be used by your king when you do not know how to submit to him? Do you understand? How do you expect your king to use you? How do you expect the Father to use you when you do not know how to submit? How? And us married women, it's going to go a little bit deeper, because I'm going to look a little bit deeper into this today. Because as married women, we are going to need to understand that it starts with a submission to our husbands. If we do not know how to submit to our husbands, we are not going to know how to submit to the Father. If I did not learn what it meant to submit to my husband, I would have never been able to be used for me to be able to do the work that I do for the Father. And I tell you something, this is not the main work that I do for the Father. This is not the main work. The main work that I do for the Father is that which people do not see. That when he says to me, I need you to go there, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And let me tell you, sometimes my own mind turns on and says, I don't think so. This doesn't sound like a good idea. But you know what? I've learned to not question and to just do. And I think that's one of the problems, is a lot of the times the reason why the Father's not able to use us is because we question. Because it doesn't make sense in our mind what he tells us to do. And that is why someone, just on Shabbat, someone asked me, and they said to me, someone was asking me, actually a few Shabbats ago, they asked me, they said, why is it that the Father is using women more than he uses men? Because nowadays it seems to be like women raise up. And I said, you know why? Because women have had to learn to submit to a man. And therefore it's easier to submit to the Father than a man. When the Father's going to tell a man to do something, and it doesn't sound like a good idea, a man is more logical thinking. A woman is more emotional. A woman will easily turn around and submit to the Father, especially when it comes to prophetic things. When it comes to prophetic things, it's easier for Abba Yahuwah to get women to do prophetic things than it is for a man. You know why? We're not in our mind. I know, because when my husband's been with me, in the only few times that he's been with me, yes, Audrey laughing, because she saw, you can't be blowing the shofar yet. It's a graveyard. You can't blow the shofar yet. I said, babes, just let me do what the Father tells me to do. You can't go climbing up there. I said, but he told me to do that. Because they will come in their logical mind, and he wants to protect me. So because he wants to protect me, and is in his logical mind, hello, It's going to be an opposition to what the Father's telling me to do. Do you understand? So at the end of the day, I understand clearly why when the Father called me to go and do prophetic things, I understand clearly today why He never raised my husband to go with me. I do. Because in the times that he's been there, it's like, but you've just been there. Are we going to go back there again? We were just there. I said, because He's telling me we've got to go back there again. Doesn't make sense. But you see, I obey instruction and do what I'm told to do. But a man sometimes is more logical. So sometimes it's more difficult for the Father to break down that area, that logical thinking of a man. And that is why a father struggles with men to be able to let go. You find that women tend to surrender more than men do. Because it's man has to provide for his family. Man has to put food on the table. Man has to provide. So therefore man will make the bigger plan. Because man has to do that. He has to till the soil. So he's a little bit more difficult to surrender to the Father than a woman. And that's why sometimes we stand back and we watch how our husbands sometimes have to seriously go through severe tests because they will not surrender. And then guess who gets dragged through it while they're going through it? We are. It's difficult. That's why we got to pray more. We've not to tell them, because the more you tell them, the worse it's going to be. You need to pray more. So Father works with them. Because have you ever tried to tell him what to do? He'll sommer rebel. He'll just rebel. I know mine. He'll just tell me straight, are you trying to tell me what to do? You don't tell me what to do. Straight. If there was one thing he learned, was from when we went to a marriage seminar, he learned a woman doesn't tell you what to do. He didn't learn anything else, but he learned that thing. I tell you something. And he held on to that with everything he had. So I understand this. And this is what we see here. Vashti saying no to the king. Are we like Vashti that says no to our king? And now look at what happens. So the sovereign said to the wise men, verse 13, who understood the times, for in this way the sovereign's matter came before all who knew law and right ruling, and who were close to him. Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, Memkan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who saw the sovereign's face, who sat first in the reign. According to the law, what is to be done to the sovereigness Vashti, because she did not perform the command of the sovereign Ahasuerus, through the eunuchs. And Memkan answered before the sovereign and the prince, Sovereigness Vashti has misbehaved, not only towards the sovereign, but also towards all the princes and all the people who are in all the provinces of the sovereign Ahasuerus. For the matter of the sovereigness, now listen to what happens when we disobey. Listen to what happens when one leader disobeys. Listen to what happens when there is rebellion amongst leadership that is going to go astray. Listen to what happens. And in this day, so it says, and in this day the princess Persia of Media shall say to all the sovereign's officials that they have heard of the matter of the sovereigness with plenty scorn and wrath. So, do you see? For the matter of the sovereigness shall go forth to all women. Listen. For the matter of the sovereigness shall go forth to all women, to make their husbands despised in their eyes, when they say, Sovereign Ahasuerus commanded the sovereigness Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. So do you see, if there is a Jezebel spirit that goes, and this Jezebel spirit is not in submission to the husband, this spirit is going to bring other women to do the same. Do you understand? other women are also going to be able to do the same. So when there is a rebellious spirit, this rebellious spirit is going to rub off on the other people, and the other people will do the same. So if we are not going to submit to the Father, that spirit rubs off on other people. If we cannot submit to leadership, and the leadership that is there, then your lack of submission will then rub off on other people, and other people will be turned astray, and other people will open their ears to hear wrong words being spoken by someone to once again bring division in a camp. And this is why so much division is constantly going on, because it is from a spirit that comes down from a Vashti, that comes down from a Jezebel, that is a rebellious spirit. That is a spirit that doesn't want to bow its knee. It doesn't bow it to her husband, then neither does it bow to her father. Do you understand? And this is why this spirit, yes, there's many men. I am not going to say that the spirit of Jezebel is not upon men, because I've seen it upon men. I've seen many men carry this Jezebel spirit. But it's more prominent in women. And it's because women want to be able to, they don't want to submit to the leadership that is there, because I'm also the anointed, I'm also the appointed. Do you see? She was having her own party with her people, because she's queen. So I can also have my own party, as opposed to being part of the king's party. Now, she doesn't want to lose face amongst the woman that she was with. So therefore, she doesn't want to go and stand before the king. Do you see what is going on here? And so therefore, we need to understand that this spirit is very prominent. And it operates in communities, it operates in churches, it operates wherever there is leadership. It doesn't want to submit to leadership, and it does its own thing. And instead of it submitting to what is being done, it's doing its own thing. It doesn't want to be able to submit to what is going on. And it's like I say to people, yeah, that's why we will never gather crowds. You know why we will never gather crowds? Because I am not here to be able to speak a soft message that's going to tickle ears. When the Father called me, He called me to bring people into the Holy of Holies. He didn't call me to bring people into the outer court. He didn't call me to bring people into the holy place. He called me to bring people into the Holy of Holies. So therefore it's a set apart place. And if people do not want to be set apart, you will see they will start to run away. Because it's going to get heated. Because this is an order of where, remember, these are always my words that I speak to people. What you get away with in the outer court is going to kill you in the Holy of Holies. You can get away with those things in the outer court. You can get away and do those things. But when you know the truth, and you're going to try and do it in the Holy of Holies, it's going to kill you. And that is why the Father, and it's like I said on Shabbat, and I'll say it again, depends who you want to be. Who do you want to be? If you want to be a set apart, holy person unto the Father, the walk that you call to is of a higher level. And Father said to me, you are to prepare my priests. His priests were the only ones that were going to go into the holy place. And his high priest was the only one going into the Holy of Holies. He didn't say to me, go and gather all the ones outside. He said to me, prepare my priests. So I always know when the Father brings them here, they are called to be priests. But it's up to them whether they're going to want to be a priest or not. And if you are called to be a priest, it means you are going to reign and rule with Him. When that temple is going to finally be built by Yeshua, that temple, not this temple that's going to come now, it's the temple that He is going to build when He reigns and rules in the millennial reign. He's going to have a priesthood. And that's who He's preparing. That priesthood. And the thing is, who do you want to be? Because the choice is yours. If you are called to a set-apart walk, you are going to have to know that your call is not of the same call as everybody else. And that's what... And, you know, I am not going to sit and you know me. If people know me, I don't judge people. I'm not a judgmental person. I don't judge people. I can sit and speak and people can stay the same. I'm not going to judge people. Really, I don't judge people. I love people. I embrace people. I mean, sometimes, Elsie, there's people that I have been speaking to for years and years. There's people that I've walked with for 20 years. Since I've been saved, there's people that have been walking with me for 20 years. And those people I'm still rebuking today. And some of them avoid me for a long time. They don't want to speak to me. Still today, they avoid me. They know me, but they will avoid me because they don't want to hear what comes out of my mouth. Because every single time that something comes, it's not quite what they want to hear. But at the end of the day, I will love them. I will embrace them. I will accept them. Because at the end of the day, I will continue to walk with you because it doesn't matter. There could come a day that the Father is going to do a work there and you're going to come in. Because I know if He brought you, it's because He knows the destiny at the end. I can't see that destiny, but He sees that destiny. I know the destiny that's there. You might not even know the destiny, but He knows the destiny that's there. Therefore, I am called to have to help His body to come into the fullness of what He wants. That's what I'm called to do. So, we need to understand that in order to do that, there's going to have to take a different kind of spirit. And the spirit is not a Vashti spirit that is going to be rebellious. Because you see what happened here. Vashti, because of her rebellion, he removed her from being queen. Why? Because her rebellion was going to contaminate other people. So there are leaders that the Father's removed out of the way because they're going to make other people stumble. There are people that the Father's going to remove out of the way because they're going to cause people to stumble. And if people are going to stumble because of people, the Father will remove them. But there are people that are genuinely coming before the Father, repenting before the Father. And yes, some of us are more rough diamonds than others. And you know what? I don't have a problem with the rough diamonds. I don't have a problem with a rough diamond. I can handle the rough diamonds. Because I myself was a rough diamond. I know where I come from. I know what it took me for Father to get me. And don't think I've arrived because I'm far from arrived. My goodness, I'm struggling even right now, just like Miranda said. We are in our pressing, our fire. I'm in my fire. And I get irritated. And then I have to ask myself, why are you so irritated? Look within yourself. Why are you irritated? Because when you get irritated, you come out of that place of irritation. Get to the root of why we are irritated. Get to if you ask, He will show you. He'll show you. And then you'll understand. And then the minute you surrender that area, wow, it's amazing what He can do. It's amazing what He can do. So, in verses 19 it says, if it pleases the sovereign, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and in the Medes, so that it does not pass away, that Vashti shall come no more before the sovereign Ahasuerus, and let the sovereign give a royal position to another who is better than she. So you see, there are those now that the Father's going to crown, and there are those that are going to fall away. So if we're going to continue to rebel, we're going to fall away. And the sovereign's decree, which he makes, shall be proclaimed throughout all his rule, great as it is, and all the wives give esteem to their husbands, both great and small. So, here we see that this was going to make all the difference with the fact that the wives were going to have to give esteem to their husbands. Let's go look at Ephesians 5. So we look at wives, because Father this morning wanted me to be able to cover this, because I think it's important that we understand what is our role as a wife. Ephesians 5 from verses 32. Verse 22. 22 to 33. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the master. So I say to you, how are you submitting to the master and yet you don't submit to your husband? How? How is that even possible? How do we submit? How are we going to be able to submit to the master if we haven't submitted to the husband? So it says, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the master. So what is he saying? If you submit to your husband, it's as if you're submitting to the Father. Now, we need to understand, if that man is telling us to do something that is not correct, then we are to be able to come to the Father and say, Father, please, do you see? Do you see what this man is wanting me to do right now? Do you see what this man is asking of me right now? Father, you know that you do not agree with this, and you know that this is not right. Father, please will you talk to this man? Please will you work in his heart? Please will you be able to work in him? And let me tell you something. Sure, Father is faithful. He will work in that man. And you know what? Even if it means that it's going to take a little bit longer, then you're going to have to hold in there.
Just because 1 Peter 3 verse 1.
1 Peter?
Chapter 3 verse 1.
1 Peter 1. 1 Peter chapter 3. In the same way, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that if any are disobedient to the word, they, without a word, might be won by the behavior of their wives. Amen. Amen. We can somehow read it even further there. And it says, having seen your blameless behavior in fear, your adornment should not be outward arranging their hair, wearing gold, or putting on dresses, but the hidden man of the heart, with the incorruptible ornament of a meek and peaceable spirit, which is of great value before Yahuwah. So it's that gentle, meek spirit. So some women are trying to win their husbands over by all their sexy clothes and the way that they look, and they're going to have to dolly themselves up to win the husband over. That's not how you're going to win him over. Do you know that? Sure, I could share many things with you. I could share many things with you of how the Father had to strip me, and how there was a time that even my own husband looked at me, because there were certain things that the Father was requiring of me, and my husband was not very pleasing in the outward adornment, in the things that was going on, and it was not easy for me. But you know what? Today, he cannot tell me enough times how much he loves me, how beautiful I am. And it was, you must understand, I know where I come from. You don't know where I come from. I know where I come from. I used to be a model. I've been on a catwalk. I've walked on a ramp. I know what it's like to be a model. I've been a beauty queen. I've received crowns and been a beauty queen, parading myself and being sashes and crowned as a beauty queen. I've had the outward beauty. And all that outward beauty has been stripped. Because Esther's beauty is not an outward beauty. As a matter of fact, the last bit of stripping has now had to come to say, let the last bit of stripping now come. So that there's no more beauty that's there of any sort. And all that's going to have to be seen is going to have to be the Father. That's all that's going to have to be seen. So whatever we're still holding on of our outward beauty, that is not what it's supposed to be. Because this Vashti was, do you know what the word Vashti means? Vashti means beautiful. There is a difference between a woman who is just beautiful on the outside. Everyone can see her outward beauty. But where there is an inner beauty, you see, an outward beauty, she spends more time in worrying about her outward beauty. You have to spend time in making your outward beauty look good. But a woman whose beauty comes from the inside, she spends more time in beautifying herself in the presence of the King. She spends more time beautifying herself in the presence of Abba Father. Understand something. The less there is of you, listen carefully. I'm going to say it again. This is the third time I'm going to say it. And it seems like it doesn't seem to be getting through. Listen carefully to what I say. If this glass is full of water, okay? If, say for example, this glass that's sitting over here is this full of you, okay? Only a little bit is filled with His glory. But the more you empty this glass of yourself, the more this glass will be filled with His glory. So you got to empty yourself of yourself for Him to fill you with Himself. But if we are still holding on to an outward beauty, we'll never be able to see. He will never be able to reflect Himself through you in the fullness of the beauty that He wants to reveal. He's going to strip us from ourselves. And I say to you, He's helping us in that. He's helping us in that. Because I know it's difficult. I know even for myself it's difficult. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. The wrinkles are there, the freckle things coming up on the face are there, and it's difficult. But you know what? When my focus is on the King, if I can look through the mirror and see my King and not see myself, I've arrived somewhere. Because it doesn't matter anymore. As long as it's pleasing to Him, that's what it's important. That's what's important. If you don't like what is being seen, c'est la vie. Doesn't matter. I'm not here to impress people. I dress for my King. I put on what He wants. I do what He tells me to do. Yesterday I was trying to do Hebrew. I was still sitting and I wanted to prepare this message, but I knew He wanted me to make this linen outfit. He wanted me to make this. And I said, and Elsie's moaning at me saying, you don't have time for this right now. I said, leave me. I am where I need to be right now. Because this is what He wanted me to put on. He wanted me to wear purple and gold. And I do what He tells me to do. If He says purple and gold, I will wear purple and gold. If He wants me to do this, I do that. Even when it means it's difficult for me. By last night, my Hebrew lesson was a nightmare because I didn't get through all the Hebrew. But praise the Father, He saw me through. He saw me through it. Like He will see me through the message too. Praise the Father, because my trust and my faith is I just do what He tells me to do, even when it makes no sense. So, yeah, we see this woman must submit to her husband. Let's go back to, where were we? We were in Ephesians 5. We were still in Ephesians. We went to 1 Peter. Thank you for that. Because this morning I was looking for that scripture, but it didn't come up in my mind. So this is absolutely the Father that gave you the scripture to give this morning. Where were we? Ephesians. Okay. I'm going to find Ephesians again. Ephesians chapter 5. I was still talking to married woman over here. So it says, because the husband is the head of the wife, as also Messiah is the head of the assembly, and He is the Savior of the body. But as the assembly is subject to the Messiah, so also let the wives be to their own husbands in every respect. So you see, listen what it says. But as the assembly is subject to the Messiah, so also let wives be to their own husbands in every respect. Make a note of that, in every respect. So even if you don't agree with the thing that He's doing, you are going to have to pray. And until such time as He changes, you don't become a Jezebel in the meantime. It took me 17 years. Husbands, love your wives, as Messiah also did love the assembly and gave Himself for it, in order to set it apart and cleanse it with the washing of the water of the word, in order to present it to Himself as a splendid assembly, not having spot or wrinkle or any of this sort, but that it might be set apart and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but feeds and cherishes it, as also the Master does the assembly, because we are members of His body, and of His flesh, and of His bones. For this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother, and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Husband and wife become one flesh. The secret is great, but I speak concerning Messiah in the assembly. However, you too, everyone, let each one love his own wife as himself, and let a wife see that she fears her husband. So do you see, did Vashti fear the king? No. So what is the Father trying to say to us? The fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. When we fear Yahuwah above everything, that is when we will obtain wisdom in being able to walk in His ways. Okay, let's go look. Oh my goodness, where are we? So now we look at Esther. Esther's name. What does Esther mean? So let's go back to Esther. Let's go back to our Esther story. And now we're going to look at chapter 2. So in chapter 2 we're going to see, then from verse 2, then the sovereign servants who attended him said, let lovely young maidens be sought for the sovereign, and let the sovereign appoint officers in all the provinces of his reign, and let them gather all the lovely young maidens to the citadel of Shushan into the women's quarters, under the hand of Hegai, the sovereign's eunuch, guardian of the woman, to give their preparations. And let the young woman who pleases the sovereign be sovereigness instead of Vashti. And the word pleased the sovereign, and he did so. In the citadel of Shushan there was a certain man, a Yehudi, he came from the tribe of Yehudah, so he was a Yehudi, whose name was Mordecai, son of Yair, son of Shimei, son of Oish, and a Benjamite, who has been exiled from Jerusalem with the captives who have been exiled with Jeconiah, sovereign of Yehudah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babel, had exiled. So you see, this was just already, we see there was Nebuchadnezzar surfacing. And it came to be that he was raising Hadassah. So you see, what was her name? Her name was Hadassah. That is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman was beautiful and of good appearance. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Now we see here, Esther's name was actually Hadassah. But did we see when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even Daniel, when they came into the palace of the king, they were given different names? Because Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is their actual, the what I always use, because that's the name that stays in my mind. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that is their Babylonian names. But they were Hananiah, they had Hebrew names. They did not have those Babylonian names. They had Hebrew names. And yet, at the end of the day, Daniel also was known as Daniel, but his name also changed to Belteshazzar. So his name also changed. So, yeah, we see, it doesn't say, but I can tell you now, Mordecai would have told Esther, you can't go there with the name Hadassah. Because why? If we go look at Esther 2:20, go look at Esther 2:20. It says, Esther had not made known her relatives and her people yet, as Mordecai commanded her. For Esther obeyed the command of Mordecai as when she was being raised by him. So do you see? She was being raised by Mordecai. Now, do you see the difference between Esther and Vashti? Mordecai tells her, you're going to go into the palace, Do not make your identity known. Do not make it known that you are a Yehudi. Do not make it known that you come from that you are a Yehudi. Do not make it known who you are. You keep your identity secret. But you are not to compromise. You are to remember who you are. You are not, be careful food is going to be given to you there. So she needed to find favor in the palace. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel needed to find favor in the palace when they went into the king's palace. So now, let's look and see. So if we look, we continue to read the story. And it came to be when the sovereign commanded and decree were heard, and when many young women were gathered at the citadel of Shushan into the hand of Haggai, that Esther too was taken to the sovereign's palace into the hand of Haggai, guardian of the woman. And the young woman pleased him. Now look at that. Haggai is the head, Haggai. He is the head eunuch. And Esther finds favor in his eyes. What made her find favor in his eyes? He must have seen something different between her and the other woman. Maybe the other women were all full of themselves. But Esther came there. Maybe she was more on a humble note. Because we'll see how Esther was a lot more humble. Because there had to be a difference between Esther. Not only that. What was the difference between Esther and all these other women? Esther was a child of the living owl. She was a child of Yahuwah. She was following Abba Yahuwah's ways. She knew the ways of Torah. She had been brought up by Mordecai, being able to bring her up in the ways of Torah. There was a difference from her. There was something different about her. And she found favor. And it says, and the young woman pleased him, and she received loving commitment from him. So he hastened to give her preparations and her portions, and gave her 7 choice female servants from the sovereign's palace. And he moved her and her female servants to the best place in the house of the woman. Now, interesting how when we see that she was chosen, she was given 7 maidens. Those 7 maidens is seen as the 7 spirits of Yahuwah that's going to prepare her in this process that she's going to go through. Because we are going to see she's going to have to go through a process. We are going to see how she's going to go in the next verses. We're going to see she's going to be prepared. So who are these 7 maidens? These 7 maidens have to prepare her. This is the revelation that the Father already gave me when I was in Israel in 2018. Father opened this up to me. Because once again, we were in that time. We were in Israel at the time of Chanukah. And Father gave me a message on Esther. Because I was going through a difficult time. And just like Esther was being called into a palace, I was being called into the land of Israel. And this was now when I'm separated from my husband, separated from my children, and it was going to be, it was winter and it was a difficult time. And this is when the Father opened this up to me, and He showed me how these 7 spirits, you are going to see. Did you see? Did you take note how many times 7 comes up? There were 7 princes, there were 7 eunuchs, and now there's 7 maidens given to her. And there was 7 days of a feast. Do you see how many times 7, 7, 7, 7? Because there's a divine perfection that needs to come out of the story of Esther. Because the Father wants us to come into a time. 7 is Father's number of divine spiritual perfection. So Esther had not made known her people to her or her relatives, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. So you see, we see again, Mordecai had made it known to her. He commanded her to say to her, don't say anything. So are we able to carry things in our heart and not say things? Even when someone says something to us, are we able to carry it in our heart? No. Because that's not the way we are. That's not the way we tick. If she would have opened her mouth at the wrong time, it could have destroyed everything. There are certain things that the Father will say to us that we are not to speak, and therefore we are to keep silent. There are certain things that the Father will tell us, now keep this to yourself. Now do this, but just keep quiet about it. And then we need to do that. That is why we need to learn our Master's voice. We need to learn to follow everything that the Master tells us to do. Every day Mordecai walked about in front of the courtyard of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what is done to her. So you know what? When we look at the story, it's almost like Mordecai is almost representing Yahushua. Yahushua there, guarding you, looking over you. He's the one seated at the right hand of the Father, praying for us, interceding for us. The 7 women given to her is seen as the 7 spirits of Yahuwah that is going to be given to us, which is the spirit of Yahuwah himself. The 7 spirits of Yahuwah is Yahuwah himself. Spirit of might, spirit of counsel, spirit of the fear of Yahuwah. It's the 7 spirits of Yahuwah that was going to be there to be able to be with her in helping her in this process. So for you to understand, you're not alone in your process. So even when you're in this difficult process, you're not alone. You have Yahushua there. You have Abba Yahuwah by 7 spirits that is there with you. His Ruach is there with you the whole time. Now when the turn of each young woman came to go into the sovereign, Ahasuerus, after she was completed 12 new moons according to the regulation for the woman. So you see, she had to be in preparation for a year. So she went into a whole year's preparation. Look at the preparation we've had this year alone. Wow. Have we seen our preparation that basically started almost from, when did our preparation start? Our preparation started in March. Pesach. And you are going to see that it's going to be just before March when she's going to be able to have to come and stand before the king. We're going to see that. So our preparation has been for almost a year that we too have been in preparation. That's why it's been difficult. That's why the Father's been crushing us. That's why we're going through things. And if it's getting to we've got our last few months coming up to Pesach. So you need to understand the crushing of that oil is going to go even deeper because we are going to need to be presented before the king. So she was in preparation. Now look and see. Preparation were completed as follows. 6 new moons with oil of myrrh. So imagine, the first 6 months from Pesach was seriously difficult for us, wasn't it? Yo. The first 6 months from Pesach when we went into lockdown, from March when we went into lockdown, it was rough. It wasn't even easy. Now the next 6 months that are coming, then so the first 6 months is the oil of myrrh. Now understand, myrrh is what Yahushua was anointed with. Remember what he was anointed with to prepare him for burial? What did Mary Magdalene come and anoint a whole bottle upon him? What was it? The oil of myrrh. Was it myrrh? Was it spikenard? Spikenard. But myrrh is what they use. I'm just thinking now. Myrrh is what they use when they prepare people for burial. It's myrrh. Because myrrh retains it retains the body. And the 6 new moons were perfumes and with the preparations of the woman. So you see, now the Father will be able to give us the perfume. We are in that time where He will adorn us. He's bringing us into a new place. He's raising us up. We're changing our identity. We're changing our whole makeup. Father is busy. Remember, by the time she was, imagine that skin, what that skin would have looked like after all the 6 months of a whole year of soaking. So you see, this year should have been a year of us soaking in His Word, of us soaking in His presence, of us soaking in everything that the Father has been giving us to bring transformation in our lives. That's why it's been, this whole year has been, He took us first into the cleft of the rock. And He hid us in the cleft of the rock with a complete lockdown. And it doesn't surprise me if we're going to go into that again before Pesach. Another complete lockdown before we can come out again at Pesach. Whatever's going to happen at Pesach. Thus prepared the young woman went to the sovereign, and whatever she asked for was given to take with her from the house of the woman to the sovereign's palace. Now imagine, she's going to be given whatever she wants from the palace, from the sovereign's house. She's going to be able to give. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie of Esther. Oh my goodness, I have seen that movie so many times. It's one movie that I've watched over and over and over, and every time it comes to the time of the Esther time, I always watch that movie of Esther because it just speaks volumes to me. I just loved that movie. I just did. And yeah, you see how these women go in that movie, and they take all this gold and they putting all the stuff on them. And all she does is goes and gets that one little necklace and puts it around her neck. Only that which the Father wants her to adorn herself with is all that she's allowed to put on. Not all this other stuff. Only that which the Father gives her, that she's to adorn herself with. So in everything, we are to be seeking the Father in everything, to ask Him, is this acceptable to you, Father? What I wouldn't be surprised if Esther maybe even asked Haggai, what is pleasing to the king? She had established a relationship with him, and what she wanted was to please him. It wouldn't have surprised me if she would have asked him, what would be pleasing to the king? Does he like all this? And he was giving her tips because he saw that she really in her heart wanted to please this king. So that's the difference. Are we really doing all these things because we're trying to please people? Or are we doing what we're doing because we're wanting to please our king? And there's the difference. Which audience are you going to stand before? Are you going to stand before the audience of mankind and what you wanting to parade for man to see? Or you wanting to stand before the king? I mean, it's so difficult because just now when we went away, when we were away, was it last week? It's like the time has gone by so quickly. It's already the week before. When we were away, we were going to go on a hike. Now, if you're going to go on a hike, you're going to put on some hiking clothes. Do you understand? And Father always says to me, the circumstances don't alter the dress code. Because even though you're going on a hike, you still represent me. And that's what's been given to me to do. He said to me, you represent me, it doesn't matter where you are. So I am going to go hiking now in this linen top, in these pants, but these pants are like a skirt, and we are hiking. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, oh Father, if I could have just worn something like a nice ski pants or something, or a pair of jeans. I don't even own such a thing. I haven't owned a pair of jeans since 2005. The last time I owned a pair of jeans was 2005 when he chucked them all out of my cupboard. But it would have just made sense for a hiking trip. So these are the clothes that Father tells me to wear, and if that's what you're going to hike with, that's what you're going to hike with. Because that's what He's asked of me. I'm not saying that He's asked that of you, but that's what He's asked of me. Because I want to be pleasing to Him. And even when it's so difficult in my flesh, and I want you to understand, I don't do it easily. Sometimes it's so difficult. And that was one of those days where I said, oh, I'm busy pulling up those pants and it's getting stuck. And it was all this rocks you got to climb. And in myself, I'm saying, if I just had something else on. And then I just hear Him say, my child, doesn't help you to get frustrated and irritated. Because at the end of the day, I've asked you to represent me, whether you're in the bush, wherever you are, you represent me. And that's just the way it goes. So you see, get with the program. Whatever your call is, get with the program and walk in it. And when you start to walk in it, it makes it, you start to just flow in your flesh, and it makes it so much easier. Because all of a sudden, you don't need to impress people. You can just be who He created you to be. You don't need to impress people. Because you're only there for your King, to impress Him at the end of the day. So the evening she went, and in the morning she returned, the second house of the woman into the land of Shashgaz, the sovereign's eunuch, guardian of the concubine. She would not come into the sovereign's again unless the sovereign delighted in her and called for her by name. Now from verses 15 we start to see, and when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abiel, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter, to come in to the sovereign, she sought no matter. You see? Here we go. She sought no matter but what Haggai, the sovereign's eunuch guardian of the woman, advised. There. I just spoke it, and there it is. I didn't even, I did this, but now you see, I didn't even remember that this is here. You see, she only sought that which Haggai told her to do. So she came with only that which was going to be pleasing to the king. So are we in that place? And Esther found favor in the eyes of all who saw her. So imagine, she walked, not in her own strength, not in doing what was pleasing for her, but she did only what was pleasing for the king. Is that where you are in your life? Are you in a place in your life that you are only doing what is pleasing to the king? Because if not, then he's still going to shake us a little bit more until we're going to get there. And Esther was taken to the sovereign Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th new moon. Okay, so look and see. She went into the palace in the 10th new moon, which is in the new moon of the 10th in Tibet. So it's Tibet, in the 7th year of his reign. So, if we spot the new moon tonight, we are entering into the 1st of Tibet, which would have been the day that she's now taken before the king. So either tonight or tomorrow night is exactly the day when she is going to be brought before the king. And the sovereign loved Esther more than all the women, and she found favor and loving commitment in his eyes more than all the maidens. And he set the royal crown upon her head and made her sovereigness instead of Vashti. Now is that where we are with our king? That's where we want to be with our king right now. We want to be so pleasing to the king that he will be able to, that we will find favor no matter where we are, no matter where we go, that we are favored by Abba Yahuwah because of that which is in our hearts. Not that which is on the outside. Not people giving you things because they see what's on the inside. It must be what you carry on the inside. They must be able to see the presence. That song that said, make your presence seen in me. Make yourself known in me. Make it be seen in me. Are we crying out for his presence to be seen in us? Because that's the cry of my heart. I'm always saying, Father, let them see you. Please do not let them see me. Because if I come forth, it's not a pretty sight. Our flesh is not pretty to anybody, is it? Think about it. Your flesh nature, is it pretty to anybody? No. It's ugly, that ugly side of you. When it comes out in all its ugliness, it's not nice. I know. Maybe you people are not there, but I'm there often. Where that ugly side of me raises up inside of me and I say, oh Father, still this person has not died. And we struggle in our flesh, and we will forever struggle until the day that Yeshua comes to fetch us. We will forever struggle in this flesh of ours. But are we making a concerted effort to change? Or do we just excuse it? Do we hear the word and hear the word and hear the word and don't change? Or do we hear the word and start to change? What are we doing? Because the longer you're going to take to be able to resist him, the more difficult it's going to get for you. The quicker you conform, the easier it's going to be for you. The longer you take to do it, the more difficult it's going to be for you. That's what we need to understand. And Esther was taken to the sovereign. Okay, so we read that. And the sovereign loved Esther, we read that. Verse 20. Esther had not made known her relatives and her people yet, and Mordecai commanded her. For Esther obeyed the command of Mordecai as when she was being raised by him. So again, even though she's now, and the sovereign made a great feast. So we see the sovereign had made a great feast, and Esther for all his officials and the servants. So the next day, on the second day, there's a great feast that's taking place. And he proclaimed a release in the provinces and gave gifts according to the means of a sovereign. And when the maidens were assembled a second time, Mordecai sat within the sovereign's gate. So yeah, you see, there's a banquet taking place. And now, imagine, who are you being ordained to be? You know what? If you don't raise up to anything on this earth, it's not important. Where's your banquet waiting for you? May we be those that may be seated at the banquet, at the table of Yahuwah. That we will be invited to the table of Yahuwah. At the banquet that He's going to put for us. May we be that bride. May we be that queen that He's going to parade, that He's going to show to all the people to say, this is my bride, because He's going to have a feast for 7 days, and He's going to reveal His bride to all the people when He comes to become king in His time. So it doesn't matter what you're going to go through now. It doesn't matter what you're going to have to suffer now. Whatever it is that you're going to have to suffer, remember, in your mind, remember the story of Esther. Your everything that you're doing is not for the people. It's going to be for the eyes of the king. When the king comes, he's going to see you. It's for his pleasure. That everything you do is for his pleasure. It's for his glory. It's for the honor of his name. Because Esther was everything that wanted it to be for the honor of the glory of the king. That's why she asked Hagar, what is pleasing? Hagar, what's his name? No. The Hagar. She asked him, what is pleasing to the king? Is that our heart today as the Esthers? Is our heart crying out, what is pleasing to you, Abba Father? What is it that you still wanting me to do that is not pleasing to you, that I am still holding on to, that you don't want me to hold on to? So, if we look at Esther, Esther's name, when her name is changed, what does Esther mean? Esther means star. Now she's being shining. She is shining as a star. A star is a sign. So what is when you look at a star, you can see a star. It's a sign in the heavens. When the Father put the sun, the moon, and the stars, they were there put as signs. So she was to become a sign. So that's why even at the birth of Yeshua, there was a star put in the heaven that was a sign in the heavens that the wise men knew that there was a Messiah that had been born. They saw the sign of the star. And right now, everybody's climbing on the bandwagon with this 2 planets that are coming together and saying, you see, it's the sign of his birthday on the 25th of December. No. It's just because the 2 planets are coming together that's making the sign. But that same thing could have happened, and I know it happened a few years ago, when Venus and Mars, I think, came together, and that was at the time of September, also around there, and that star was bright in the sky, and that was more or less towards the end of September, and that's more or less when Yeshua was born, and that was also in the heavens. And so at the end of the day, there was a star that was there that shone bright for them to know. And so that's why Esther's name means star. Hadassah means myrtle. It's the myrtle flower. Now the myrtle is known as the bridal flower. So she was myrtle being prepared as a bride to become Esther that was going to become star. So she was a bride being prepared, a myrtle flower, a bride being prepared. The myrtle flower is the flower that's basically it's known as a bridal flower. It's white. They're always white. A myrtle flower can only ever be white. It cannot be another color. It's only ever white, the myrtle flower. And so therefore it's known as a bridal flower. And her name was changed from Hadassah to Esther, because she was going to become a star that was going to become a sign for her people. And that's why in Daniel 12, verse 3, stay in Esther, but we can quickly go to Daniel, which is just before. Because this is what the Esthers need to become. So you need to understand, as Esthers that we are becoming, what do we need to become? Look and see. In Daniel 12, verse 3, it says, and those who have insight shall shine like the brightness of the expanse, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. So who are those that are going to shine? Esthers are going to have to become stars to be able to bring people back to righteousness. And they will be wise. They will have wisdom, because their ear is at the heart of the Father. And when their ear is at the heart of the Father and their finger is on the pulse of time, they will understand the seasons and the times. And they will have the wisdom that comes from heaven to be able to speak the things of the seasons and the times, to be able to bring people into righteousness. And they will become signs, and they will be stars that need to shine. And we will see how Esther fulfills this. She becomes a star that not only is one that has got outward beauty. And you know what? I am almost sure that maybe Esther wasn't the most beautiful woman, because it wasn't her outward beauty that made her beautiful. It was her inward beauty that made her beautiful. It was that inward beauty that was there. It was her humility. The humility that she had, where she was willing to submit to Mordecai, where she was willing to be able to submit even to the king. Even before she's even become his wife, she's already willing to submit to him. Imagine, before she's even become his wife, she's already asking, what is it that's pleasing to him? Isn't that amazing? She was already had a heart of one that was wanting to submit to him. She didn't want to do anything that was going to be to defiant him, to go against him. So now let's continue to read. Where am I now? Now I've totally lost my place. Okay, let's see. All right. Now we're going to go look at from chapter 3. In chapter 3, we're going to read chapter 3 for us to be able to get the understanding of what is going to happen. And chapter 3 is very important for us to understand the timing that we're in now. So I'm going to stop here, and then I will continue, because then it's going to be too long.